these reflections had taken a rather peculiar turn. It seemed to me that I myself was what the book was talking about. A church, a quartet, the rivalry between Francois I and Charles V. This belief lived on for a few seconds after my waking. It did not shock my reason, but lay heavy like scales on my eyes, and kept them from realizing that the candlestick was no longer lit. Then it began to grow unintelligible to me, as after metempsychosis do the thoughts of an earlier existence. The subject of the book detached itself from me. I was free to apply myself to it or not. Immediately I recovered my sight, and I was amazed to find a darkness around me, soft and restful for my eyes, but perhaps even more so for my mind, to which it appeared a thing without cause, incomprehensible, a thing truly dark. I would ask myself what time it might be. I could hear the whistling of the trains, which, remote or nearby, like the singing of a bird in a forest, blotting the distances, described to me the extent of the deserted countryside where the traveler hastens toward the nearest station, and the little road he is following will be engraved on his memory by the excitement he owes to new places. To unaccustomed activities, to the recent conversation and the farewells under the unfamiliar lamp that followed him still through the silence of the night, to the imminent sweetness of his return. I would rest my cheeks tenderly against the lovely cheeks of the pillow, which, full and fresh, are like the cheeks of our childhood. I would strike a match to look at my watch. Nearly midnight. This is the hour when the invalid who has been obliged to go off on a journey and has had to sleep in an unfamiliar hotel, wakened by an attack, is cheered to see a ray of light under the door. How fortunate! It's already morning. In a moment the servants will be up. He will be able to ring. Someone will come help him. The hope of being relieved gives him the courage to suffer. In fact, he thought he heard footsteps. The steps approach, then recede, and the ray of light that was under his door has disappeared. It is midnight. They have just turned off the gas. The last servant is gone, and he will have to suffer the whole night through without remedy. I would go back to sleep, and would sometimes afterward wake again for brief moments only, long enough to hear the organic creak of the woodwork, open my eyes and stare at the kaleidoscope of the darkness, savor in a momentary glimmer of consciousness the sleep into which were plunged the furniture, the room, the whole, of which I was only a small part, and whose insensibility I would soon return to share. Or else while sleeping I had effortlessly returned to a period of my early life that had ended forever, rediscovered one of my childish cheek was still warm from her kiss, my body aching from the weight of hers. If, as sometimes happened, she had the features of a woman I had known in life, I would devote myself entirely to this end, to finding her again, like those who go off on a journey to see a longed-for city with their own eyes and imagine that one can enjoy in reality the charm of a dream. Little by little, the memory of her would fade. I had forgotten the girl of my dream. A sleeping man holds in a circle around him the sequence of the hours, the order of the years and worlds. He consults them instinctively as he wakes and reads in a second the point on the earth he occupies, the time that has elapsed before his waking, but their ranks can be mixed up, broken. If toward morning, after a bout of insomnia, sleep overcomes him as he is reading, in a position quite different from the one in which he usually sleeps, his raised arm alone is enough to stop the sun and make it retreat, and in the first minute of his waking, he will no longer know what time it is. He will think he is only just gone to bed. If he dozes off in a position still more displaced and divergent, after dinner sitting in an armchair, for instance, then the confusion among the disordered worlds will be complete. The magic armchair will send him traveling at top speed through time and space, and at the moment of opening his eyelids, he will believe he went to bed several months earlier in another country. But it was enough if, in my own bed, my sleep was deep and allowed my mind to relax entirely. Then it would let go of the map of the place where I had fallen asleep, and when I awoke in the middle of the night, since I did not know where I was, I did not even understand in the first moment who I was. I had only, in its original simplicity, the sense of existence, as it may quiver in the depths of an animal. I was more destitute than a cave dweller, but then the memory, not yet of the place where I was, but of several of those where I had lived and where I might have been, would come to me like help on high to pull me out of the void from which I could not have got out on my own. tries to reconstruct and name the dwelling in which it found itself. Its memory, the memory of its ribs, its knees, its shoulders, offered in succession several of the rooms where it had slept, while around it the invisible walls, changing place according to the shape of the imagined room, spun through the shadows. And even before my mind, hesitating on the thresholds of times and shapes, had identified the house by reassembling the circumstances, it, my body, would recall the kind of bed in each one, the location of the doors, the angle at which the light came in through the windows, the existence of a hallway, along with the thought I had had as I fell asleep, and that I had recovered upon waking. My stiffened side, trying to guess its orientation, would imagine, for instance, that it lay facing the wall in a big canopied bed, and immediately I would say to myself, why, I went to sleep in the end, even though Mama didn't come say goodnight to me. I was in the country, in the home of my grandfather, dead for many midst of the hostility